Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. So in the previous lecture, we just started our discussion with statistics, more specifically the business statistics or the applied part of statistics. Today we'll start some of the basic concept of statistics, the type of statistics, right? So the very first thing in statistics is the descriptive statistics. And if you are thinking to land yourself in any data science role, this is a must-have skill you should have, right? Whether it's a data analyst positions, whether it's a data engineer, whether it's a data scientist, this is a something which everybody should be familiar with, the descriptive statistics. Now what we do in descriptive statistic is, the very first thing is we collect data, right? We do some survey. From that survey we get some data. It's not necessary that you always collect data. Sometimes you can use the third party data also. In fact, you'll see that in most of the real life scenario, you'll end up doing analysis on the data that somebody else has collected. Okay, so the first part is data collection. The second part is data presentation. Now this is a very important skill, and you'll see that there are a lot of books have been written in data presentations. There are a lot of techniques people follow to present their data in an appropriate way. In this particular course, we'll follow the most accepted technique, the most popular technique, that is showing our data info by pictures, by tables, because it's very easy for anybody to interpret picture other than word or text, right? So we'll see some visual way of representing our data. The third thing in descriptive statistic is the characteristic of data. So in that, the first is measurement of central tendency, and there you'll typically study about mean, median, mode, right? So for example, if I give you the salary of 1000 employees, right, and I'll tell you what, and I'll ask you what is the salary of data scientist, right? So obviously you won't start saying each and every person's salary out of it, right? So what you'll do is, like, you'll typically give me just one figure, and that figure would be the average salary of data scientist. So that is nothing but this, that is a measurement of central tendency. We are trying to understand in which particular value, what is a typical value around which the majority of data is concentrated. That is typically a mean value. Okay. We very briefly introduced about population and sample. So population is something which is consist of all the items or individual about which we want to draw conclusions, right? I gave an example that if suppose you have to uh, know the average salary of data scientist, right? Then what you can do is, like, you can go to each and every data scientist in this world, and you can ask them their salary. But then we realize that this process is not feasible, because first of all, it's not possible to reach each and every data scientist in the world. Second is, obviously, it is very much time taking. Third is, it is very expensive, because you have to travel all across the world, right? So that is the reason we made a conclusion that population is not really easy to work with. So normally in real world, we deal with sample. From populations, we draw some representative samples, we perform our analysis on this, and we try to estimate the characteristic of population, right? Another very good example I'll give you of working with sample is, let's say that you are an owner of perfume factory, which is uh, manufacturing perfume on daily basis. Now your you have a department called quality assurance, and that department, what it does is, like, it tests perfume from each and every bottle, and if the quality is good, then that will be sold to customers. Now just imagine that if you have to test the quality of perfume from each and every bottle, right, how much it would be lost to business, right? You would lose a great amount of perfume if overall. So what we do is, like, we don't check the quality of our perfume by actually testing from each bottle. We just randomly draw some bottle out of your conveyor lot, and we just test the quality of perfume by using those sample. And if the quality is good, then we generalize that, yeah, the quality of overall perfume which is getting manufactured would be good enough, right? So from now onwards, whatever analysis that we would be performing, just keep in mind that those analysis would be done in sample, not on populations. Ideally we should do our analysis on population, but just because of some limitations I mentioned, it's it's better to do those analysis with the sample and estimate the results to population, which comes under the part of the inferential statistics. So far, are we good, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
If you feel something is missing, you can interject me at any point of time, and I can pause for a while and clear your concepts. Okay, just don't wait till the moment I ask if you are having doubt or not, because all the topics are related. If you'll miss one point, then it's very likely that you won't be able to understand the subsequent part also. Now, this is something which we discussed earlier also, the types of data, right? We talked about categorical data, we talked about numerical data. Just try, let us give a minute to refresh those concept one more time. So when we talk about data, there are two kinds of data we can have. One is the categorical data, the other is numerical data, right? So when we say categorical data, it basically means category. For example, gender, which can be further classified as nominal category. When we say nominal category, that means this is just an identifier. We cannot perform any mathematical operation on that, right? For example, gender. Gender is nominal category. We cannot say that one gender is superior than other gender. The other is ordinal category. Ordinal category are those category which we can rank. For example, I give an example of Likert scale. Somebody asks you how do you like this course? What and they gave an options: extremely good, somewhat good, not sure, bad, extremely bad, right? So you this is something which you can rank. That is the reason these kind of things can be put into ordinal scale. Similarly, your percentile, your CAT score, which is typically given in form of percentile, right? So those percentile is nothing but an example of ordinal scale, right? The other is numerical data, which is have got further two types. One is called discrete. Discrete means a complete number. It won't have a fractional part. For example, number of houses, number of children, right? And one important thing you remember here, within discrete there's an interval scale, and that interval scale does not have true zero. For example, I say temperature. Okay, so temperature can be like 1 degree Celsius, 2 degrees Celsius, 3 degrees Celsius, right? And you can perform some mathematical operations on temperature. You can take the difference between the two temperature, right? Now, one point I have mentioned here does not have true zero. That means we cannot say the temperature is zero. There would be some temperature, but it won't be a zero, right? We cannot say that there is an absence of temperature. So temperature is an example of interval scale. The last is the continuous data, which can be further grouped as ratio scale, where we can perform all sorts of mathematical operations. We can do subtraction, we can do multiplication, we can do division. For example, height is one. You can say that this particular person is uh, twice as taller as you. You can say that if I have if my height uh, increase by 1.5 times, then I'll become my height will become equal to your height. So those kind of relations you can draw with ratio scale, right? Now the question is why at all we have to classify this variable into different level of measurement. The reason is the type of statistical test that you can perform depends upon the level of measurement. Okay, I think this point will get clear when we'll actually reach to that point where when we'll start performing some statistical test. But for time being, you can just understand that the level of measurement of variable is really important. Okay. Can anybody summarize me what are the 4 level of measurement we just discussed? Anyone?
Yeah, it's nominal, ordinal,
Mm-hmm.
discrete, and ratio.
Yeah, it's nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio. Discrete is a type of
Internal.
data. Yeah, discrete is a type of data, and that type of data is measured by interval scale.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah. So, yep, I'm happy that you all are awake. Okay. So now let us start the subtopics of descriptive statistics. Okay. So as I have mentioned multiple times, descriptive statistics is describing your data, and there can be multiple ways of describing your data. You can just summarize your data by one number, let's say mean or median. You can present your data by graphical way also, right? Which is preferred way according to me. This is my personal opinion. I always feel that portraying your data by some visual is better compared to coming up with some number. Okay, so we'll see how we can present our data by different ways. Okay, so here I'm having an example. I'll just read and we'll try to solve this example. So the manager of Hudson Auto would like to have a better understanding of cost of part used in engine tune-up performed in the shop. He examined 100 customer invoice for tune-up. What is the typical cost of part used in engine tune-up? So here we are talking about one automobile manufacturer, and the people are coming to him for engine tune-up, and he want to understand that what is an average cost incurred in engine tune-up, right? So that he can compare that whatever he is charging to his customer is comparable to the other uh, automobile service provider. Getting? So do you see this a business in this a business value in this analysis? Do you think that this kind of analysis is making sense? I see this example as a useful one, because definitely if we get this answer, then the manager of this Hudson Auto will be able to compare his average cost with the other service provider, and that will help him to improve his services, right? So now let's try to do this using Python. You can also open this editor in your system. You just need to write Google Colab in your Google search, and the very first thing you'll get is the Google Colab. Right. Wait. Yep. So if you'll click this one, your you just need to put the names of your notebook and new notebook, and it will spin up Python IDE for you. Okay. If not, you can also keep watching me doing this, and then later you can try. So see, first thing is to import the relevant packages in Python. Yesterday also I told that the key KPI of Python is its library functionality, right? So we'll import all the relevant libraries first in a workspace. So first is NumPy. NumPy is a very important package of Python used for doing array computation. Okay, so I import NumPy as NP, and then I told that it's important to represent data also in form of visual, right? So there's another package called matplotlib. Matplotlib library provides you various functionality to build visual from your data, right? So what we are doing here is we're importing matplotlib package, and from that package there's another sub package called pyplot, right? So whenever you have to import a sub package of some package, what we do is import package name dot sub package as plt. So I'm just aliasing it as plt because I don't want to keep writing matplotlib dot pyplot every time. So this is just a shorthand representation of this one. Okay, I have imported my relevant package in my workspace. After that, what I'm doing is
Ashutosh, can you explain me about this library once again, Matplotlib, this one?
Matplotlib. Yeah. So this is a
Yes.
Python library which is used to build visuals. It is used to create various graphs from your data. Like if you are having a data, with the help of this library, you can plot histogram, you can plot bar chart, you can plot pie chart, right? So in order to use this library, you simply need to write import matplotlib.pyplot as plt. You're importing a sub package called pyplot from this package matplotlib and aliasing it as plt.
So there's further code we can use PLT instead, right?
Yes.
To follow all those functions.
Yes.
Okay.
See, every time if I'll ask you to write this entire this big word, it won't be feasible for you, right? I mean, it is feasible, but it will take some amount of time. So that is why we alias the packages with a very small word, so that if we have to write this thing multiple times, it doesn't take much time. Getting?
Yeah.
Okay. Now going to the next thing, you can keep doing parallelly in your system also, right? Now, first of all, we are simulating this problem. So first of all, we are generating some random 100 customer invoice. Okay. So in other way, first of all, we are generating some random numbers. Okay. So to generate, so look at this part first, this part only. Okay. So what I'm doing is, from my numpy package, there is a function called random, numpy.random, and from that function is another function called normal. So what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to generate a random numbers that will follow certain distribution, and that distribution is called normal distributions. I'll tell you what normal distribution is, but for time being, you just understand that I'm trying to generate random numbers, okay, that will follow certain distributions, and the mean of those random numbers would be 97 and variance would be 15. And how many such numbers I'm trying to generate? 100. So this is the way I'll invoke that functionality. I'm generating random numbers by using numpy package. And how many random numbers I'm generating? 100. Okay. So you'll see that if I'll print this cost variable, you'll see that I have generated some random numbers, right? So these are the random numbers. Okay. So what we are assuming is, so this is the cost incurred in each engine tune-up. So one customer came, he did his engine tune-up and he paid $78 to Hudson Auto. Another customer came, he gave $67 for engine tune-up, likewise. So what this person wants to understand is, what is an average cost for engine tune-up? On an average, how much people are giving him for engine tune-up? Okay. So first of all, let us understand the distribution of data. So I mentioned that matplotlib is the package used for analyzing the distribution of data, right? Or drawing visuals out of data. So what I'm doing here is I'm using matplotlib, and from matplotlib I am invoking a function called histogram. I want to draw histogram. So for that, the keyword is hist, the function name is hist. And to draw histogram, you need to provide some data, right? So I'm providing this cost variable because this is having these random 100 values. And how many bins I want in that histogram? 15. So I'm specifying here 15. So if you want, you can skip this 15 part also. This is just an optional parameter, but you need to provide data to your function so that it can plot histogram for you, right? And you'll see that this is a distribution of my data. This is the histogram I generated from those 100 sample of invoices. Yep. So what are the things that you can draw from this histogram? So one thing definitely we see that majority of data is concentrated around 100, right? That means majority of my customers are paying somewhat around $100 to me for engine tune-up. So this is a measure of central tendency. You see, this number 100 is a measure of central tendency because majority of my data is concentrated around this 100. You see the bar is highest for the value 100. And to be specific, out of my those 100 customers, 16 customers are giving me somewhat around $100, right? So this is a distribution of my data. You'll understand the importance of the histograms later, but this is just a quick way of representing your data. You can see how exactly my invoices are distributed, right? Now, if I ask you, what is the average money that Hudson Auto is getting for each tune-up? By looking at this distribution, can you give me that answer?
Can you repeat once again?
My question is, by looking at this distribution, can you tell me what is the average cost people are paying to Hudson Auto for engine tune-up? What is the average cost? On an average, how much a person is paying to Hudson Auto for engine tune-up? Just look at the histogram and tell me what is that number, what is that amount? I just told that number.
100, obviously.
Yes, it's obviously 100, right? Another thing you can draw conclusion from this histogram is, you'll see that there are certain customers who have paid around $130 also, right? You'll see that this bar, which is a bit isolated from the rest of the graph. So this is a kind of outlier, right? So my measure of central tendency, which is a mean, which is the average, is around 100. I understand that majority of customers are paying me somewhat some amount which is closer to $100, but there are very few customers. To be specific, there is only one customer which has paid me $140 also, which is an outlier. Understood? Are we good? Say something.
Yeah, yes.
Sure. Everybody is fine till here?
Yes.
Yep.
Cool. Then the next thing we'll see. Is my screen visible?
It's visible
Yes.
now.
Yep. So you just learned how to represent a numerical value, right? Those representation we saw, That was for numerical value. Now we will see how do we represent our data through some tabular method. Okay, so what I showed was a histogram. Now we'll try to understand how to represent our data by tabular method, right? So first of all, let us prepare some random data for our analysis. Don't look at this code piece of code. That is not important now. Yep. So see, I have a data which is having two columns, and in one column I'm having the banking preferences of people. On another column I'm having what is a percentage of people who are using that preference. For example, I see that there are total 24% of people who used to do their banking work through internet. There are 17% of people who used to physically go to the branch and perform their banking work, right? So this data I'm having, where in one side I'm having banking preferences, the other side I'm having percentage of people who are opting that preference. Okay, now if I have to show this data in a bit smarter way, how would I do that? I can show like this. I can highlight the important columns so that it becomes easier for my client, that this is the preference which majority of people is opting. So maybe in this particular preference only I should invest my money to improve the services, because that will serve majority of my customer. Understand? So this is a one way of representing your data. Okay, the other way you can do is you can generate some bar chart, right? So again, I'm using a package, right? So here you'll see that so this part is clear, right? Now I'll tell you how to draw this graph. Okay, so I'm using another package called pandas. Okay, so for what pandas is used? Pandas are used for doing numerical, computations over table. It is used to create table. It is used to perform some analysis over table, right? The other is I'm using a same package matplotlib for visualization. Okay, now I have created a data and storing it a variable called banking. Okay, I am first of all creating first column. So my first column name is what? Banking preferences. And then I'm assigning these values, this in person, at branch, internet service at branch, ATM, to this column by passing it as a list. Then I'm creating another column, which is a column of percent, and I'm passing these values. And after this, when I printed this variable, you saw this table. Okay, now I want to generate bar graph from this table. How would I do that? First of all, write your variable name which is having that table. Okay, just invoke plot functions. It's very intuitive, right? Because I want to do plotting, I'm invoking a plot function and I'm passing a argument called bar h, where bar means the for bar graph, h means for horizontal. I want to make a horizontal bar graph. Just I did that and this graph was ready. Okay, see. So we presented our data through tabular way also. Okay, we presented the same data through visual way also. Bar chart. Is it making sense? Are you able to follow? Anyone having any question?
No, it's clear.
All right, cool. Now coming to the another visual, the same data I can present in pie chart also form. I mean, in pie chart form also I can present the same data. So let's see how to do it in pie chart as a pie chart. Okay, I'm having this variable banking, right? In that variable, I'm having this table. Okay, now again, I'm just invoking a function called pie from PLT. PLT is matplotlib, a Python library for visualization. From that, I'm invoking a function called pie. I'm passing two variable, right? The first variable is the column 1 of your data. The second variable is the values of second column. So in the first column, what do we have? We have banking preferences. In the second column, what do we have? The number of people opting that preferences. So I'm just passing the values of those two column, and my pie chart is ready. See, in this particular part, my intention is to not teach you how to plot this graph. My intention is to teach you what are the things possible with the help of different libraries of Python. Just wanted to make you aware about the scope of possibilities with the Python packages. You see,
Can you please explain like how do you measure the size? Like 10,7 you said, right? Size of the pie.
yes.
What is that?
Yep.
Yeah. So how that figure size 10,7 relate to what?
So 10 is the width, 7 is the height.
Okay.
This is the width, this is the height.
Diameter, you mean?
Width. So you'll see that this plot is built on some plane, right? In some window pane it is generated. So 7 is the width of that pane, and 7 is the height of it. Not the exact diameter. Yeah, you can say that it may be a diameter also, you can say. So like from this point to this point, it is 10. And from this point to this point, it is 7. So this is a dimension of the figure. And this is something which we'll understand by doing some hit and trial thing. I can change it also. Like let's do it now. See, you understood. It got smaller. So you have to do some like hit and trial thing to understand what is the appropriate chart size, right?
Right now, I'm not simultaneously doing it because I need to download and follow the instructions. I don't, I skip that part.
Yep, no problem.
So guide me in that sometime later.
Yeah, yep, we'll do that. But right now, the focus is just to explain you how we can represent our data. This was the data we have originally. We presented it by 3 ways. One was by table, but we did some customization on table so that our user can immediately capture our story which we want to present by putting this yellow background on this one specific cell. The other is by bar chart, the other is on pie chart. Now the other form of representation is Pareto chart. So Pareto chart is nothing but it's just a bar graph only. The only difference is here will represents cumulative polygon also. So I'll show you how this Pareto chart looks like. So this is the same bar chart, but now you have this polygon line also along with that, right? So what does it is representing? That there are 42% of people who are in person at branch preference, and then I'm having total 60 people, percentage of people who are having these two preference. I'm having total approximately 78% of people who are having these three preferences, right? So the reason why we go for a Pareto chart compared to bar chart, you will see that this looks almost similar, this one and this one is. Here you are able to segregate your vital few things than trivial many. For example, if I give you so for example, if you being a some person in banking industry and you want to improve the people service, you from looking at this graph, you see that approximately 80% of entire people are having these three preferences, right? So you would like to focus improving the services of these three things instead of considering everything. And the and this Pareto chart comes from a theory or principle, I should say,